Thank you very much, Karen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's Cabinet meeting. It's just gone 6 o'clock, so we will begin. I'd like, if we can, to pay tribute to a previous councillor of this authority, represented a ward in Bedworth, a gentleman called Barry Loggett, who I believe very recently has passed away, and I wonder, in a spirit of unity, we would mark his passing with a minute's silence. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We do have the evacuation procedure. I think everybody does know what happens in the case of a fire. We're not expecting the fire alarms to go, but we do leave through the fire exit doors. And can I ask that all mobile phones are either switched off or turned to silent, and should advise that all of this meeting, I understand, because there are no confidential items, will be recorded and used for future broadcast. Apologies for absence. I've received one from Councillor Ian Lloyd. And on that point, can I welcome Councillor John Beaumont to his first meeting of Cabinet. We do welcome you, John. John is taking on the role of Housing, Health and Communities with the same terms of reference as the previous portfolio holder. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any other than those printed on the agenda?
Chairman, there was a declaration of interest which I submitted a couple of months ago, I think, for the Constitutional Review Working Group, Working Party, and it's not appeared yet here. I did anticipate it would, but I'm just drawing it to Richard's attention so that he can put that in. Should I say what they are?
Can you expand on them, John?
Well, one is I was appointed to the board of Bulkington Village Centre by this council, and I also happen to be the manager, unpaid, of Bulkington Community Library and secretary to the board that runs it. So.
Okay, they're duly noted. Thank you, Sean. Can I also welcome Rachel Dobson, who is actually a new member of staff, relatively new. Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Rachel Dobson. I'm the Head of Revenues and Benefits Shared Service across Nuneaton and Bedworth and North Warwickshire. And that's really all I can say at the moment, but I'm available if you've got any questions to ask me. You can contact me by email or by telephone.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Welcome to Nuneaton and Bedworth. We have a reputation for being really friendly, and I trust that you'll enjoy working with us.
I hope so, yes.
Okay. Item 4 then is the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I sign those as a true record?
Yeah.
Is that second?
Yes, I'm
Agreed?
Agreed.
Sorry, there were a lot to sign there. Item 5 then is public consultation. We've received notice that on item 6, Councillor Keith Condaka, Michelle Condaka and Councillor Chris Wilson want to speak, and on item 7, Councillor Keith Condaka, Michelle Condaka and Councillor Chris Wilson. Are there any other speakers? In that case then I'll take that as the list this evening and take them in the order they are. Okay, so the first item then, substantive item, agenda 6, local council tax support. This report presents Cabinet with the draft local council tax support scheme from April 2019 onwards. A summary of the scheme and the current caseloads are given at section 3 and 4 respectively. It is proposed that the scheme remains the same as 2018-19, other than to update the applicable amounts and premiums in line with those used by the Department of Work and Pensions. These are included in a revised scheme document. It is also recommended that the Executive Director Resources be given delegated authority to agree any other minor changes to the scheme in consultation with the portfolio holder for finance and civic affairs. The recommendations are shown at section 2, and the scheme for 2019-20 requires approval by full council in February. Can I ask Rachel, is there anything you wanted to add at this stage to the report?
No, not at all.
Thank you very much. First speaker then is Councillor Keith Condar.
Thank you very much. I speak every year on the local council tax support scheme because it is one of the areas where the government is taking money from people who haven't got it. And clearly the pensioners are protected, as it says in the report, but the working age people on very low incomes are not. We expect to give them a discount, but the discount can't be more than effectively 80%. So no matter how hard their circumstances, they'd be expected to pay 20% of the council tax. But then we have a hardship fund to actually cover those cases and other cases where people can't pay the council tax. And we have about 200 people asking for that, and that's in table 4.3. We keep saying that this council only takes 13% of the council tax. Any improvement on this scheme actually only costs us 13% of the improvement. So if we put in £100 to help people, it actually only costs us £13. The other costs are borne by the county council and the police precept. So effectively, this is an area we should be looking at. And if we charge 20%, and other councils like Stratford might be 10%, whatever, effectively we are actually disadvantaging people in our borough. And I keep asking, why can we not reduce the 20%? Obviously we can't reduce it down to 0 because that would cost the collection fund a lot of money, and then in turn we would actually end up paying 13% of that. But we keep having a hardship fund that has £40,000 underspent on it. We have lots of issues, and we never seriously consider dropping it to the 19 or 18 or 17%, which would actually help put money in the pockets of people who can't even pay 20% of their council tax. So I do actually ask you yet again to actually have a look at that 20%, particularly as you're introducing green waste charges and doing various things in your budget, which is actually taking money from some people in society. And you say, well, we need this money to help the less well off. But you're not helping the less well off. Where the money is going is the money for the bistro, which you've got an enhanced bistro, things like that. This is where, if you have got any extra money being raised, we should be putting a little bit into help. And one option you've got is to defer this till your cabinet setting the budget, which is about a week's time. So actually you can consider at least looking at, rather than doing 20%, just do 19%, 18, just a tiny sliver, but that would help a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any points of clarification? Well, thank you very much, Councillor Conroy. Next speaker is Michelle Condar.
Thank you. Case covered sort of some of what I was in. I just wanted the figures for 2018-19, have those been sort of guesstimated up to the end of the financial year? Because obviously we're not at the end of that year, so I didn't know whether they'd been just sort of scaled up. I mean, it is encouraging to see that the gap between the received and awarded is reducing, so more people who are applying are actually getting it. The one thing I wanted to actually raise was about the fact that it's not for call-in, because you know all year when it's got to be published, and therefore working back, why isn't it not come to an earlier cabinet, particularly as the last cabinet was actually cancelled because of lack of work, or lack of business, I think was the term used, because surely all they've been, I mean, I'm not saying that it would be called in and things, but just from a democratic point of view, actually to be able, that it could be called in, you know, is much more democratic. Also, I saw Keith sort of half touched on it and things, in terms of, so I mean, I've got someone I go and visit through, you know, voluntary work, things. She doesn't pay council tax because she's pensionable, age, etc., etc. And then she's been asking me, you know, she hasn't got the money, and then she said, what am I supposed to do about this green bin, sort of thing, because it's always been part of her council tax, which has been paid for her, and things. So there's a lot of things, tied in with this, and you know, that's just one person out of the 100,000 whatever who pay in the borough. So those are all just the things I'd like to just raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Condacott. Any points of clarification?
No, Chair.
Can I thank you very much for your comments? Councillor Chris Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. In a similar vein to Councillor Condacott, I do have a concern over paragraph 4.3 of the report. I understand that there is a balancing act to be made when finding out what your tipping point is for assisting residents in terms of council tax support. But at the moment, and it's fairly consistent, between a third and a half only of the budget on successive years is being spent on council tax support. Now, if there is a way, and I know that officers are perfectly capable of modelling these things, because I've had them model other things on take-up and things like that, that if you reduce it and widen the scope slightly, you might actually be able to help more people. So I think Councillor Condacott does have a point about, is 19% going to catch some more people, or 18% going to catch more people within the overall budget that we're still spending? I'm not asking the council to allocate more money to the council tax support, would that we could. But we have that pot of money there, and it seems unfair that we aren't using that to help some of the people in our society. We now have a track record. We've been using this process for 6 years now. Perhaps we can start to refine some of the categories that we use to assess people on these issues. And another point that I would like to raise is on paragraph 6.1, where it talks about the equality impact assessment. And I am disappointed that a new EIA has not been done for the equality impact for the council tax support scheme since 2013-14. We have been through a number of years where this authority, and to be fair, the county council and the police and crime commissioner have put up their precepts to the maximum. So there is a material change in people's circumstances. And that needs to be considered amongst the other issues where, for example, have wages risen in accordance with inflation and all those other statistics that come out of the National Audit Office. So I think there is a case, and I think you certainly should be doing this in the next year's review, of redoing the equality impact assessment, because I think there are material circumstances which have changed. This authority has changed the amount of council tax that it collects since this original scheme was done almost 6 years ago. And that may have an impact on residents. And it may be that the equality impact assessment comes back with no overall impact. But say someone wants to judicially review this because they think we haven't acted fairly or reasonably, I think they would have an arguable case to say, actually, your equality impact assessment is out of date and should be redone. So that puts this authority, I think, at risk as well, that we haven't redone that in almost 6 years. And as I say, there have been changes in people's circumstances over that period of time. I really do think the Cabinet needs to look at that, not only to ensure it's fair, but to ensure that we are covered from a legal position.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any points of clarification? Can I ask Councillor Wilson, you refer to 6.1 in the report. You will note An independent consultant did an equality impact assessment in 2013-14, but it also goes on to say that was reviewed in light of technical changes agreed for 2017-18. So it is factually incorrect to say an equality impact assessment has not been done.
It has been reviewed, Chair, but a fresh equality impact assessment has not been done. That is what the report says.
Can I thank you for your comments, Councillor Moss? Any member?
Well, I take on board everything we hear again, and but yes, and it is a shame that people have to pay minimum of 20%. What 1% would do to 19 or 18%, I don't particularly know at this present moment in time, but I hear what they say. Despite everything that's happened since 2013 and 14, I mean, we did start out with where we could support people with a grant of 100%, and then the government came along and said, well, we'll make this 90%, you can use the other 10% to work out how you're going to do it. Then that money is being decreased through the decrease in the revenue support grants, so it's actually just disappeared now completely. So it's all in the big mix of everything from a council tax point of view. Councillor Conacher is dead right that we only pay 13p in the pound, but this scheme is costing on average over £8 million. Not us, this council, Councillor Conacher's right, but it's costing the councils and people with precept £8 million a year to help people. You know, and I don't see much change over those 18-9 years, considering we hear so much that how things are improving, how we're helping people with a universal benefit, how it's paying them to work. Why are so many people still needing our help in this day and age? Doesn't seem to me that anything's changed over the past 5 or 6 years. There are always going to be people out there that need help. But I don't see this so-called long-term economic plan is helping people out there at all. Even people that are in jobs are struggling. We do have a hardship fund. The hardship fund at present stands at 60k, and I'm pleased and welcome any resident to come and apply for if they're in trouble. That's what it's there for. And we have financial inclusion officers now that do help people that are struggling with their debts and various other things in this society, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say there was one of the speakers who spoke about it not being marked for calling. This is actually a report that will go for a decision to the next full council meeting, so there is an opportunity for all councillors to consider this report at that meeting. I'm going to turn to Simone and or Rachel and ask about whether calculations have been done about reducing the 20% figure, because obviously we do have less and less revenue support grant year on year, and I'm sure we would all like to spend every single pound that is available, but has some work been done to look at that?
We haven't done any modelling on the 20% for the 1920 scheme, predominantly because of two issues. At 3.4, we do point out there that the grant funding that the council received to pay for the scheme has also reduced significantly since the outset of it. So whilst some of the take-up is reduced, our funding to pay for it is also reduced. And at 4.3, again, our rationale for not reducing the hardship fund is that certainly over the last 12 months, the changes to universal credit full service, we are expecting, it is a demand-led fund, this one, so we think the change to universal credit could increase the demand for that scheme. And we didn't think it was prudent to reduce that, especially with us going full service universal credit.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments?
No, Chair.
The recommendations are those as printed then at section 2. Are we happy to agree those?
Yes, Chair.
Is that agreement for everyone?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That is then agreed. We come on then to agenda item 7. This report presents Cabinet with a national non-domestic rate retail relief policy for 1920 and 2021 in order to implement the policy announced in the Chancellor's autumn budget in October 2018. This will provide reduced non-domestic rates, liability by a third for occupied retail properties with a rateable value of less than £51,000. Section 3.4 of the report estimates that around 380 businesses will qualify, subject to state aid restrictions. The Council will be fully reimbursed for the cost of providing this relief. The recommendations again are at Section 2 of the report, and the policy is attached at Appendix A. Before I pass over to members of the public, I'd like to ask Simone if she can, because there is a word that I certainly found hard to understand, and several sections. I think it's pronounced hereditaments.
Hereditaments.
Can I ask Simone if you can explain why we have to use a word that to most people I think is very difficult to understand and explain what it means?
That's the terminology used in business rates legislation, which is why we have to use that in the policy. It basically refers to a unit of assessment for business rates. The full definition, and you'll see why we haven't included this in the policy anywhere, the full definition of it is it's property which is or may become liable to a rate being a unit of such property which is or would fall to be shown as a separate item in the valuation list. So it's basically a unit of assessment for business rates purposes, normally a building.
And it is that we have to use within our policy,
In the policy,
under government
yeah.
legislation. Okay, I thought I'd clarify. The first person then to speak, Councillor Keith Kondraka.
Thank you very much. Business rates is a right dog's dinner and is getting more and more complicated. Rather than actually fix all the problems in the scheme, every couple of years the government does a bodge, which in this case involves us spending a lot of time working out who can get discounts. The whole thing is a stupid idea. What we should do is start and have a better, fairer scheme of business rates. That said, we have what we have. And one thing I want to make sure is that this discount does the right thing. So I hope it doesn't apply to hot food takeaways that are next to schools. So actually we can do a little bit of filtering, because we can choose to give people this discount. I don't know if there's any opportunity. I don't think betting shops are in this anyway, but I don't know if there's any opportunities in the scheme just to take out a couple of things that may be a problem. And also there's an opportunity in here, hopefully, for things like Bedworth Market. A lot of our small things, we actually pay business rates on. And we may actually be able to take advantage of this discount, which, coming back to what I said earlier, will actually mean we keep more of the money rather than it going to the council or the police. So I don't know if Simone knows if any of our properties could be exempt under this rule. Thank you.
Thank you. Any points of clarification? We'll come back to some of the points you made later. Okay, thank you. Michelle Kondraka.
I don't think I actually need to add anything, to be honest.
Okay,
Thank you for clarifying that stupid term.
Thank you.
I thought, what? You learn something new every day.
You certainly do. Councillor Christmas.
Thank you, Chair. I think we all love legalese at this time of night. I actually really want to welcome this report because for some time now, many of us have said, particularly on our side of the chamber, that we are concerned about the state and health of our town centres and businesses and incentives that we can give to businesses to actually stay within our town centres and to come into our town centres. And to provide assistance by giving up to a third off business rates on a rateable value of £51,000, providing they don't hit the state aid regulations, I think is a really positive move from this government that this local authority should be celebrating and be really going out there and selling to all the businesses in our town centres, because this may mean the difference between someone's overheads and whether they stay within our town centres or indeed our borough, because it's not just town centres, there's other mini shopping centres and businesses across the borough. It could mean the difference between them staying or going. It could mean the difference between them hiring someone or laying someone off. It could mean the difference between them expanding and not expanding. When you look at a business, every single piece of your overhead is vital in making sure that your business plan and your business model works. And this piece of assistance, no tax is perfect. Council tax isn't perfect. All of us have to pay income tax, but I'm sure we'll all say it's imperfect because it comes out of our pockets. Business rates, again, is an imperfect tax, but it's what we've got, it's what we've got to work with, and any assistance we can provide, I think we should be celebrating. I really thank the government for doing this, providing the money to enable us to do this, and we should be going out there and really promoting it, especially with all the work we're going to be doing on the Transforming Nuneaton front, because as I've said in council, and I will be saying again and again, there will be a point where we need to ensure that we have some incentives to keep people in while the work is going on, because this isn't going to be an easy turnaround of our town centres. It's going to be like turning around an oil tanker at sea. It's going to take a while to get the Transforming Nuneaton package working, and some businesses may need this assistance in order to keep them afloat whilst Transforming Nuneaton is going ahead as well, because there may be alterations to shopping patterns whilst work is being done within the town centres. So I think, again, a really positive message, and this council really needs to go out and trumpet and should go out and actively seek out businesses, not just wait for them to come to us, actually go out and seek those businesses and inform them that it is there, because I think it's a really valuable piece of work this council could do.
Thank you. Any points of clarification? No, thank you for your comments. Can I ask Simone or Rachel, one or the other, is there anything within the legislation that allows us to take a different line with, for example, takeaways that are next to schools?
The policy that's with the agenda, page 26 and 27 of the agenda, does set out those types of properties that the government expects that we will apply this to. It is a discretionary policy, so that does allow us to use that discretion if we chose to. However, we do need to be careful about consistency. So we would normally apply relief to those units that the government have stipulated.
And I think there was another comment about whether any of our own properties may actually qualify for this.
I don't believe so. I don't think we're actually allowed to give it ourselves. Rachel,
I wouldn't know, like, for example, the Bedworth market, I wouldn't know if we've got the properties, we find that we've routed them out by the size of the property, so we know the properties already.
Can I ask that, I'm sure it's of great interest to all elected members, that if we have a look and find out whether there are any, can we please advise elected members to that effect? I think that would be helpful for everybody, really. They were the main points I picked up from public input into this item. The recommendation is at 2.1. Somebody prepared to move that?
I'll move that because I think, Chair, it's about time the government did something like this. For all the reasons Councillor Wilson has mentioned, we need to protect our high street and we need to work together, and this is a start from government at last.
Anyone happy to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, are we all happy with the recommendations?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we really hope this does provide that much needed support to the business community, particularly smaller businesses out there. I'm sure we'll really welcome that. Can I thank everybody? I don't believe we have any other items on our agenda this evening. Can I thank you for your attendance and wish you a safe journey home?
Thank you very much, Chair.